Welcome to Gold Derby. I'm Senior Editor Denton Davidson here with Mary McCartney, Director of If These Walls Could Sing, the untold story of the Abbey Road Studio, featuring all-star interviews and intimate access to the premises. What's so special about Abbey Road Studios? Why did so many artists, including your father, Paul McCartney, see it as the best place to record music?
I think, well, I mean, I hadn't realized that it had opened 90 years before. It opened in 1931. I think I would have, if someone had sort of quizzed me, I would have said it opened in like 1961 or something. So I think it's its longevity, and also it's the fact that it has classical music, rock and pop music. There's so many different styles of music. Also, it's sort of, you can sort of track the history of recording, the recording industry, and so it's sort of got so many elements to it. It's really British as well. It's in the centre of London, so it's just got so much to it. And I think in the documentary, I mean, when I was asked to direct the documentary, I didn't know a lot of the sort of more historical beats throughout the history of the Abbey Road Studios. So I think that's the thing. I think it's sort of the surprising element. It sort of encompasses so many people, and it means so much to so many people. People make the pilgrimage to go there because it means so much to them.
What was that call for you to make this film? And what inspired you to do this, where your dad recorded so much music and you have so many personal memories there? What was that calling for you to make this film?
It's somewhere that I've grown up going to. I mean, as a child, going into the studio to visit my parents recording, but then, I was working as a music researcher and I would go and visit people more through work. So I got to know the people that actually work at Abbey Road Studios, and they became my real friends, and I could see the real family atmosphere there. So there's that. But, really, it's that feeling when you go in through the front door. It's like a residential building that's been converted in 1931, the back garden had these huge studios made. So it's sort of this, you think you're walking into a house, and then it's this little recording studio, well, a big recording studio. But I think that's the thing. It's sort of you still get that feeling when you walk through the door. I definitely do. It's sort of this sort of feeling of something special. There's some sort of magic in the walls there, which is why it's called If These Walls Could Sing. But in asking the people, when I was directing it, I hadn't had nobody had agreed to be interviewed, and I was like, if Elton John doesn't agree, or my dad doesn't agree, or Oasis, then I don't really have a documentary if the artists don't agree to be interviewed. But they instantly jumped at it, because I think coming back there, I could see, and when you watch it, you can really see that people are excited when they're there. It's sort of, there's something magical about the place. And in making the documentary, because it is a busy working studio, it's not open to the public. I think it was my opportunity, sort of my family growing up there, knowing the people that work there and loving them, just thinking the people that come there and have their picture taken on the zebra crossing are now, invited in. It shows you, I think, why it's so many people globally know the name Abbey Road Studios. I think I've my aim was to go some way to explain why is it that we all do.
There's so many great moments. One of the scenes, you're speaking with Elton John, and he's talking about just meeting your father. Those are the moments we don't get to see if documentaries don't come out. I mean, that's just so cool to see these two icons that, were coming to know each other at that time. What was it like for you to sit down with and hear these stories, not just as a filmmaker, but to hear the story about your dad? I mean, what were you learning these things along with us, and what was that like for you?
I was completely learning it all with the viewer. And again, I think that's why I'm really pleased that I did take on the project, because I have to admit it was quite daunting. For a while, when I was learning the history, I kind of went down with my story producer and we wrote down the timeline and all the people that have recorded there over the 90 years. And there was a point where I was like, how am I going to make this into a cohesive documentary that is not going to feel like a history lesson, and is going to, I really wanted it to have emotion, and because I love the place and the people I interviewed love the place so much, I kind of wanted to portray that emotion, because there are lots of facts, but after half an hour you kind of switch off. So my background, this is the first documentary I've directed, but my background is 25 years of portrait photography, so it really came in really, really useful. I kind of approached it like I would a photo shoot. I kind of built this, I used Abbey Road as much as possible as my location, but and then I used props from the studio, like things that, like, Abbey Road has instruments and tape machines just sort of lying around in the hallway. So I brought them in, put them into the background, had the microphones put in. So, visually there's something to look at, but then did quite a nice soft lighting so that my subject, when they were talking to me, it was very conversational. I didn't want it to be like interview talking heads. I wanted it to be like a family feeling to it. Really casual, so it does feel like you're being invited in. That was the atmosphere that I went for.
And as a huge music fan,
So answer to your question, Elton John came in and he gave like one of the best interviews, because he came in, I'd got it really ready for him. So when he came in and he was in there, he was like, oh my goodness, being back in here. And I had a really good set of questions ready for him. So I was able to prompt memories, because it's a very long time ago. So in a way, you kind of, as an interviewer as well, you need to go through questions sort of to jog people's memories. And we had like the recording session sheets that we could show him. So, so it sort of made it an interesting interview. I wanted it to be interesting for him to do the interview, not just like the usual questions that he, something that he would enjoy. And then I think that comes across to the viewer, hopefully.
and as a music fan myself, when I think of this studio, I just think of all the famous pop stars that must have gone through there and recorded there. But one of my other favorite interviews was with John Williams, and hearing about the film scores, I didn't think about that. Indiana Jones and Star Wars, what these iconic film scores were recorded there, and that meant a lot for the studio at the time, correct? What did that business bring to the studio, and how did that change things?
That kind of, in a way, it saved the studio. It was a seminal moment, because a lot of the classical recordings which were done in Studio One, which is the really huge one for orchestras, they'd all kind of been done and they'd all been redone for CDs. So orchestras were not booking the space regularly anymore. And there were letters and plans to sort of carve it up, make it into a small studio, make it into a car park. So luckily the manager, Ken Townsend, heard that there was a studio in Denham that was closing down, and he said, he made a deal to bring the movies to Studio One, but they weren't prepared for it. You have to have like a window through from the control room, and you have to have the screen so you can project while you're doing. So it was all kind of this quite exciting time where they were sort of putting it together. But then one of the first films in, as you say, was Indiana Jones, like before Indiana Jones was Indiana Jones, and George Lucas and John Williams came over. But John Williams' interview was just the most beautiful, eloquent, heartfelt moment. And it was such a strong interview that I could sort of hang between him and George Lucas. I could hang the whole section in the documentary about the film scores on those two interviews, with that and archive. So, it was a very important interview for me. And, I haven't heard anybody speak so beautifully about a recording space. He really brought it alive.
Yeah. If These Walls Could Sing, why that title?
Well, that was actually the title when I was asked to direct it, and I liked it, so we kept it. But it's that idea. Giles Martin says it in the when I interview him, and he's like, it's a bit like a teapot. Like in Britain, when you have afternoon tea, you're not meant to like rinse out a teapot. You sort of just swirl it out, and then sort of it builds up and it builds up, and you know, the flavor and character, you know, it grows as you kind of use it more. So if these walls could sing is literally, what would these walls say in the 90 years? They've had so many different artists come through the doors, but each one has really utilized it, and it's shone. But again, it's because the people working there, they're dedicated to just doing, you know, within those four walls, everyone's dedicated to do the best they can.
Well, it's a beautiful documentary. Congratulations on the film. Best of luck to you at the upcoming Emmys. If These Walls Could Sing is currently streaming on Hulu and Disney Plus. Thank you for joining Gold Derby today.
Thank you.